I don't want people to get kicked in the head. They're so bent around that they become this little rubber duck horse. I don't want people to come out into a group of horses with this romantic ideology that it's all gonna be kumbaya. The more you pull them right through there, see how I pull kind of quickly? Wait for your horses to give you consent is one of the most bogus pieces of shit. These horses should graduate from the snaffle into quit horsemanshiping your horse to death. I don't know that you're ready for this, but first I want to say welcome back, guys. Welcome back to the ranch. We are back for round number 2 of horrible natural horsemanship exercises, philosophies, principles, teachings that have been taught in the natural horsemanship world for the last 20 plus years that are absolutely detrimental to developing real, reliable skills and deep partnerships with your horse. So I hope you're ready for this because it's about to get spicy. And as we head up to the arena, y'all, to get things started and get June tacked up here, I gotta say, only if you like this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave us a like, and be sure to use that comment section. Let me know which of these 5 things most hit home for you. What stuck out to you are the things that maybe you've struggled with in your own horsemanship journey. So let's get into the arena and let's get started. Well, we're gonna start this thing off with a bang because 2 of the things that I'm going through out of the 5 today are things that absolutely piss me off, because the number one thing that will piss me off is the things that people get taught that gets them potentially hurt or killed. And this first one is one of the most overdone, overused, misused things in the natural horsemanship world that can set people up in their horses to get hurt. I don't want you to get hurt. I don't want your horse to get hurt. And I know that a lot of times this is one of the most boring topics, but oftentimes we have to understand, where does it start? Like when your horse starts to run off with you, you're like, why is my horse running off with me? I've been following the steps. I've been doing the program, right? And so what we're going to talk about here is lateral flexion. And I'm going to take you through why this is such a big issue. And also I'm going to show you the way that I found that I believe works better, and you can decide if it works better for you and your horse. So we're not just going to pull out problems. I'm going to talk about the solution and build the bridge there as well. So when it comes to lateral flexion, guys, there are people out there that are teaching horses that they just need to bend their head around and they just need to hold it and hold it and hold it and hold it, and like you should be able to drop that rein and that horse just always stays there. That's what you call false flexion. You see how that horse took her head back, right? Because she's there staying with inside my rein. But you should not have a horse that bends their head around and just stays there in perpetuity, okay? That's not good. I'll explain why in a second. The other thing is that we have other folks out there teaching people to bend their horses around to where their nose is basically licking and chewing on your boot, and they're so bent around that they become this little rubber duck horse all the way around. And that creates a massive issue when you go to actually ride your horse, not just stand still on them, because so many people practice lateral flexion just sitting here, laterally flex, laterally flex, laterally flex, laterally flex, over and over and over and over. And then what happens when you go to work your horse? Your horse is going around, you're like, hey, steer. And your horse goes, what do you mean steer? Laterally flex. And the feet keep going the way that they want to go, and they laterally flex. And now your horse's feet in your head their head is completely disconnected. And that right there is how you create a runoff horse. And so it's so important. We're gonna get into building that bridge. I'm gonna show you a much better way to go about doing this. For those guys that don't know what I'm talking about, I will try to show this to you and be as nice to my horse as I possibly can. If you care about your horse, you will not laterally flex your horse where they're licking on your boot or holding false flexion, okay? But what that might look like is I would bend this horse, bend this horse around here that see how her outside ear is tipped down towards the ground, right? And I'm holding her here, and in her neck, she's only actually using the first few vertebrae. She's not actually using the base of her neck. That is not what you want to be doing with your horse. And that also what you don't want to do with your horse is drop your reins, okay? So there you go. So when we go to actually laterally flex our horse here, what we're actually looking for is I want her ears to stay nice and level, right? That part is really important. Just like you're hanging a picture on a wall, what you want to be and end up doing is making sure that it's nice and level. So I imagine that there's one of those little water bubbles right here. I want to make sure her ears are right where they should be. And when I go to laterally flex my horse around, notice how here her ears are nice and level. I'm not going to overbend her. She can bend a little further. Now when I asked her to come a little bit further, she actually went to look at my boot, okay? Because I was just holding her head around it. But right there's where I want her to be. When she's right here, she's using the entire length of her neck, all the way down to the point of her withers. I'll show it this other way where her mane's not on. And so you can see when I bend her around here, her ears are still nice and level. And right through there is about as far as I want to bend her, because if I bend her too much further, then what's going to end up happening is that she's going to tip that outside ear towards the ground, and she won't be using the entire length of her neck. I want this horse to use her entire length of her neck. And I explain why we need those ears level. It's because it's connected to the rest of her body. When her ears, if her ears start to tip this way, if her right ear drops down, she gets heavy on this right shoulder. So if I'm riding this horse around, which I will do here in just a second, and actually let's just go ahead and do it now so that we can put this to good use. What you don't want to do is to be riding your horse is thinking to the friends out in the field, and you're like, hey horse, ride to the right. And your horse is like, but I want to go to my friends, and I want to go over here. And they're just going because their mind's over there. It's like, no, their mind needs to follow. When you touch that rein, their mind needs to come with the rein, and their feet need to follow all the way through. That part is so, so, so important. And even in the back up here, right, when I ask this horse to back up, you can see how her ears stay nice and level. She's able to back up nice and straight all the way through, because that is just a nice point of reference for balance in how your horses are riding. And you do not, through lateral flexion, want to get your horse disconnected from their feet. That part is so, so, so important. And one simple way that you can do that, guys, if you're starting young horses or if you're having to retrain a horse on the foundational concepts, is when you're walking that horse around and you ask that horse to look to the right, that you use your outside leg and place that outside rein against their neck and ask them to follow that rein that direction. Right, so I open that door to the left here, say, hey, look that way. There's the lateral flexion through, and now bring your feet and follow that through, right, off my outside aids. I'm not pulling that horse through. The more you pull them, like right through there. See how I pull kind of quickly on that rein? See how it affects her ears, it affects her balance, and she gets heavy over here. We don't want to be doing that. We want to be guiding our horses by opening our seat and showing them, and then driving them as we need to off of those outside aids, so that way our horses can actually stay connected and they can stay balanced. No more rubber neck horses, none of this junk. Leave it in the past. Let's bury it in the natural horsemanship world and let it freaking die. And the second thing that we're going to tackle is one of the most feel-good things that people get attached to, and that is that soft hands make a soft horse. And a lot of people out there like telling themselves that, and teachers and clinicians and educators like telling their students, hey, you need to have soft hands so your horse will be soft too. Guess what? And that makes us feel good. We want it to be true. And we do need to be as soft and as light as we possibly can for our horses. But soft hands, being too soft, is no better than being too firm. Because being too soft and being too firm on both sides of the pendulum are both ineffective. And if we actually want our horses to be soft, we don't need to be thinking about, I need to be super soft with my hands. What we need to be thinking about is, I need to be supportive with my hands. And I'm going to take it even a step further here in a second, because being supportive through your rein aids specifically. If you're truly being supportive, then you're willing to be as soft and as light as possible, but as firm as necessary to support your horse in however they need you to in the moment. And in building in real softness with our horses, I'm gonna show you guys a little pro tip really quickly. I'm gonna relate this back to horses that are kind of in that foundational stage of their education. Because when we talk about not being too soft and not being too firm, something that we need to realize is that we need to have life. We need to have a good flow of energy through our hands, down through our reins, so that way we can be helpful for our horses, okay? And so when you're riding your horses, one of the things to really keep in mind on a green horse is that a lot of times people think, like, I'm gonna ask this horse to get soft, and if I ask my horse to get soft and they get rigid, a lot of times people say, just hold and wait, just hold and wait, just hold and wait. And one of the things that can really trap a horse and make a horse feel even more stiff is because if you go to take a hold of a horse and they don't give and they don't get soft the way you need them to, and you just hold them and they aren't super experienced, they can feel really trapped up. And so one of the things that I'll tell my students to do with their hands is that when you can ride softly with your fingers, but then you can close your fingers and open and close your fingers as if you're squeezing the water out of a sponge. And that can give a little life. It can keep you from bracing through your upper body, and that way you can open and close your fingers and maintain that softness through your reins, through your arms, and allow that horse to find that softness, and you create a constant communication, and you don't give that horse something to lean on. A lot of times when you go to get that horse soft, and if they don't get soft the way you need them to, and you hold, then they end up bracing and pushing and rooting against you, and it's ultimately really because either you're not setting a straightforward, clear enough boundary of where that horse needs to be, or you're also giving that horse something to actually lean on. And so you want to be way more supportive through your rein aids so that way that horse can start to understand how to stay within your hands, between your reins and between your legs. And the last thing I'm going to finish this one up with, guys, is that the real truth to more softness through your rein aids is not just softness through the reins, but it's softness through the rest of that horse's body. And the more that we ride our horses from underneath our seat, from back to front, and having control behind it, being able to influence the barrel, being able to influence the shoulder, and we're able to guide that horse more, and they get that horse to use themselves more appropriately in what I call a working posture and an athletic frame, the softer they can be up front because they're using the rest of their body appropriately, and they can be more engaged, they can be more straight, they can be more balanced all the way through, and that there in turn creates more softness in the front end. But we don't create softness throughout the whole body just by getting them soft in the neck, right? That's how we get them disconnected, and that's what we talked about, the issue with lateral flexion. So as we go through, make sure you keep that softness, you keep that lightness and that feel through your hands. Focus on getting them soft through their body, and in turn, you'll get them softer up front. And we're moving on to number 3, y'all. And I gotta tell you, I'm gonna be really honest with you. I've been sitting in this field for 25 minutes, just waiting on my horses to come over here so I can build a relationship with them. You know what they've been doing? They've been over there at the gate, waiting on their buddies to come back from being worked, waiting on us to bring them some hay. And I'm just sitting out here, waiting on them to come over so we can play duck, duck, goose together, so we can bake in the Texas heat and build a relationship. And I tell you, this whole idea that you just need to go sit in a freaking lawn chair in the middle of a field and wait for your horses to give you consent and wait for your horses just to come over and sniff you on the shoulder to build a relationship with them is one of the most bogus pieces of shit that floats around in this business. And the reason I say that is because this whole concept of building a partnership is nothing new. Building a partnership with a horse has been a part of horsemanship and working with horses ever since we decided to stop trying to just eat them and start actually working with them, right? This whole partnership thing has been around for centuries and it's nothing new. But the problem is that there's a lot of educators out there that are pushing and really leveraging the emotions that come with someone wanting their horse to like them. And it makes me so mad because people come out here and they literally will sit in the middle of a field, you know, with a whole group of horses, or they'll try to go out there and match steps, or they'll try to do these things with their horses to try to get connected with the horse, and they put themselves in very dangerous situations. And one of the biggest things that will actually piss me off is teaching people things without enough context to the extent that it's actually gonna get people hurt. And this is one of those things. And I try to boil this down with a very simple solution. I refer to it as a working partnership. And a working partnership is what you do with your horse develops the skills, and how you work with your horse develops the partnership that you have together. But you build the skills and the partnership that you have together. Because guess what? There's never a time with your horse that you will not want both the partnership and the skills that you both have together at the same time. Because if you're out trail riding, if you're out doing a horse show class, guess what? In the best of times, in the worst of times, what do you need to have? You need to have a partnership that runs deep to your soul and to your horse's soul. And you need to have skills that you both know, you have the understanding, you have the ability, you have the know-how, and you've done the practice together to make sure that those skills are reliable. But this whole idea that we're gonna leverage people's emotions, knowing that you want to have a strong partnership, and then just telling them that you're gonna sit out there and do things that don't make sense to horses. You know what makes sense to horses? Horses need to have good leaders. When you put a new horse in a herd environment, they don't just go out there and just match steps together and sit out there and just sniff each other and look around. And guess what? They go up and they meet each other and they move each other around and they do things together as a group. Right? They try to figure out what's that horse's personality like? What are they going to react? How are they going to respond to certain things? And they start to do things together. The pecking order starts to get organized based on who is actually in charge, who is the most suitable leader in the relationship. And within the horse and human relationship, it has to be the human. It has to be the human. And when the human steps up to become a leader that their horse can see as worthy of following, and you show them, hey, guess what? I'm going to keep you safe. Meets one of their fundamental needs as a horse. You're like, I'm gonna keep you safe. I'm gonna be fair. I'm gonna be consistent. I'm gonna work from a place so I can help you understand what I'm trying to communicate. And therefore, you start to develop skills together, and how you approach that with your horse develops a deep partnership that your horse can look forward to, that you can look forward to, that becomes dependable as you go. But this whole facade of sitting out in fields or just doing nothing with your horse is absolutely ludicrous. Now, here's the thing. There's plenty of time. You need to spend time with your horse, time doing things together, time grooming your horse, time hanging out together. But this whole idea that you're gonna spend all this time doing nothing, expecting to get something done, is absolutely maddening. And the reason I get so passionate about this is that I don't want people to get kicked in the head. Right? I don't want people to come out into a group of horses with this romantic ideology that it's all going to be kumbaya, sitting around playing duck, duck, goose around the bonfire, eating bonbons and sipping coffee, when it's not. That's not how the horse herd environment works. And guess what? It can be one of the most enjoyable, one of the most spiritual experiences to develop that deep bond with our horse. But we can't let the rose-colored glasses fog the mirrors. Right? We got to look at it for what it is. We have to work with our horses from where our horses need us to come from, right? And that means that to come from a good place within your heart and to do the work, take the actions that is necessary to make sure that your horse feels safe, to develop the skills, develop that working partnership so you know what you do, what you spent your time doing, develops those skills, and how you work with them develops the partnership. Now for number 4 here, we're gonna keep this one brief so we can get back to the arena, because that 5th and final one is probably gonna strike a nerve with a lot of you guys. But for the 4th one here, this one might too. Quit horsemanshiping your horse to death. The lie that so many people get told is that you have to do all of these exercises in the exact same order all the time. Every single day, every single week, every single month, you have to follow the exercise. And if you don't follow the exercise in the right order, then you can't move to the next level. You can't move up. You're not allowed to keep moving forward unless you do those exercises in the exact right order every single time. And if you can't do that, you can't move forward, and you're gonna be trapped. You're gonna be trapped within the program. And it's absolutely a load of garbage, because those exercises, you watch those horses that have been horsemanship to death, guess what? They have no souls left. The life has been sucked out of those horses because they are so bored, they are so dulled up, they are so resentful from just being run like they're little motorcycles and doing the same thing over and over and over again. And guess what we want to do? We want our horses to actually enjoy the work that we do with them. And that means that we need to actually keep the work that we do with our horses, we need to keep it fresh. We need to keep it enjoyable. We need to keep it new and exciting. We need to keep the life. We need to keep the energy to it. But those exercises in those orders that they're taught for, and guess what? If you go into our CAVVY community, guess what happens? There's a list of exercises in a specific order, but it's not for your horse. And I'm very bold about that. It's for you. When you develop your toolbox, it makes most sense for us people to learn exercises in a specific order. And then once they're in your toolbox, guess what you do? When you go work with your horse, you pull out the specific tool that you need. You pull out the exercise, you pull out the approach that you need to have with your horse right then and there. You don't have to go through and use this exercise and this exercise and this exercise in the same single order every single day to where your horse just becomes robotic and soulless. No, because if you hired somebody to come out and fix your air conditioning and the guy's like, well, I'm gonna bill you by the hour, but I've gotta go through all these steps here to make sure, even though I think that the problem's further down the road, I've got to go through all these steps. You're like, why would I pay you to do something that is not necessary. Why would I do that? And your horse is like, why are you making me do something that I already know how to do, that I don't need to be doing? And why can't we just move on since I've already prepared to the good stuff? Go pull those exercises. I always tell my students, you need to know the rules before you break the rules. So you need to learn the exercises, you need to learn the approaches. And I try to teach them in an order that makes most sense for the human. But beyond that, then I want you to go out there. I want you to have the actual knowledge and the confidence to go pull those tools out of your toolbox and go use them when they're most appropriate with your horses. So the fifth and final thing that we're gonna tackle, and I'm gonna ask you a question to start this one off, is have you guys seen someone that's ridden in a specific program? We're talking about natural horsemanship programs, but maybe you look outside of the natural horsemanship world, and you're like, man, that person and their horse, they have been in the snaffle for freaking 7, 8, 12 years, and they've never actually moved on with their horse. And what I'm saying is there's a difference between choosing to stay in a snaffle and being stuck in the snaffle. What I'm tackling here is being stuck in the snaffle, because so many programs, particularly in the natural horsemanship world, you watch people and they start their horse as a 3 or 4 year old. And that horse is 9 years old, 12 years old, 17 years old, still going around in the same damn macate and the snaffle bit that they've been riding in since that horse was a 3-year-old, never actually progressing, but boring the shit out of their horse, doing the same exercises over and over and over and over again. And it drives me absolutely nuts, and I don't want you guys to be stuck in the snaffle. Now, whether you choose to stay in a snaffle is your own decision, but I want to break this down for you really quickly. And the number one thing before I start to move my horses up and ride them in a bit that is meant to be ridden one-handed, whether that's a spade bit, right, in the vaquero tradition, I'm putting them in the 2 rein or moving them up straight up into the bridle, or a horse like this where I have her more in a performance horse-based bit. This one's called a correction bit. I know it's a terrible name for a bit, but I didn't name it. And you moving these horses up into these bridles, what I want to be able to make sure I can do in the snaffle is that I can ride my horse one-handed in the snaffle. And I know that in itself is controversial, because people are like, you're not meant to ride a snaffle one-handed. But when you actually ride your horse and your horse understands that the bit is there as a point of reference for balance, and they really ride off of your seat, and they understand how to stay between the reins, they understand how to stay between your legs, and when you pick up on that rein, that they understand how to get soft and how to change their point of reference for balance. That is what I'm looking for before I actually progress these horses up into a more advanced bit, because these horses should graduate from the snaffle into more of a signal-based bit. Now, is there leverage to this? Hell yeah, there's leverage to this. It's called mechanics, okay? Like, people are like, it's a signal-based bit. Okay, yes, we operate off of signal, right? You want to pull the slack out of the rein, and then the rotation through the shanks before there's a physical contact and that horse gets soft, right? And we want this horse to start to come off of less, operate more off the signal that we're asking our horses to do. And we want to be able to make sure that they can do that in the snaffle bit. But these programs, guys, that keep you stuck in the snaffle because they don't actually give you the information to teach you that that horse needs to be able to guide and follow your seat like you're dancing with your partner. If that horse can't keep up, that you drive them off your outside aids, and that you should start to get your horses actually straight and balanced and engaged from behind, right? They're not giving you the ingredients that you actually need to have to progress your horse forward. So if you're stuck in the snaffle, that's why we're doing these videos, to give you the freaking information that you need to actually be able to progress and move on with your horse. Because guess what? When you graduate a horse up into out of the snaffle into something like this, you can do less, and your horse appreciates it because you can be softer, you can be lighter, you can operate off of less physical pressure. The snaffle bit is designed to be a direct pull laterally and off of direct pressure. These bridles are not. These bridles are meant to be more off of signal when you're riding your horses. You can do less, you can be quieter, you can be more subtle, you can be more refined by actually graduating your horse. When we switched this horse's bit over, earlier in the video you saw us, we were riding her in a snaffle. When we put her in this bit, she got noticeably happier when we put her in there, because a lot of horses, once you move them out of that snaffle, they are so thankful to get rid of all the extra noise that comes in with the snaffle bit. But people won't tell you that because they want to keep you entrenched in their program so that you have to keep coming back and doing the same exercises and the same shit over and over and over and over, right? And if you're sick and tired of it, guys, that's why we put that link down to our CAVVY community down in the description, and we take you through the steps. We take you through the real raw information that you need to have to be able to actually progress with your horse. That's the whole reason we've done it. And that's where you can get direct access to me answering your questions with your horses. If you're actually serious about going and putting in the work with your horse and actually making real progress and getting real results with your horses and developing a real partnership and real skills that you can depend upon, that's where we do it, is down in the CAVVY community down below. So let's go ahead and wrap this thing up, and we'll see you guys there.